Live from Dublin and around Ireland, theatre takes centre stage. Streaming live and focusing on the issues, the art, the craft, the makers. News, hot topics, and artist features. From theatremaker.ie.
Tonight I'll be talking with Festival Director Ruth McGowan about the reimagining of the Dublin Fringe Festival, as well as the new restrictions put in place by the government and what that has meant for the Fringe team. We'll then be joined by Luke Casserly and Shanna Breen, the artistic duet behind 1000 Miniature Meadows. We'll be talking about their collaborations and the inspiration behind this intimate soundscape. Finally, I'll be speaking with Dr. Miriam Haughton and Emma O'Grady to talk about their project, Mad, Bad and Dangerous, a celebration of difficult women. Also on tonight's show, Oisin Robbins and Martha Breen, and a glimpse into Fibin's Fiach. I'm Kelly O'Doherty, and this is Stage Door Live for the 26th of August 2020. Hello again and welcome to Stage Door Live, episode 19. First things first, a big thank you to everyone who has joined our new Patreon community. Your support is invaluable and of course we love connecting with our viewers. So do check out our Patreon and keep chatting to us on social media. We love hearing from you. We're so excited to be back after our week off, and we're bringing you extensive in-depth coverage of the Dublin Fringe Festival, which kicks off next week. We'll be covering the festival and its artists for the next 4 episodes. It's hard to believe the autumn festival season is already upon us, and it's a season unlike any we've ever seen before. Before we welcome our first guest, let's take a look at what's been happening in the news. The prompter isn't working. Last Wednesday, the Oireachtas Golf Society held an event commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Society. The event had 81 attendees, including high-profile guests such as Independent TD for Galway West and the captain of the Society, Noel Grealish, European Commissioner Phil Hogan and former Deputy Leader of Fianna Fáil, Dara Calleary. Calleary apologised and resigned the morning after the story broke. The event took place just 2 days after new restrictions were announced in light of the rise in COVID-19 cases nationally, which specified at the time indoor events will be reduced from 50 people to just 6 people. Those restrictions, of course, caused quite a stir in the arts and live event sectors as conflicting information emerged over the course of several days early last week. The new measures were finally clarified on Thursday with an official statement from the Departments of Health and of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht, confirming that indoor cultural events are restricted to a maximum of 50 people, while outdoor events are now limited to only 15. The National Campaign for the Arts issued a statement on Friday responding to the new regulations and highlighting specific concerns over the impact of the outdoor restrictions on the industry, saying, "When the government issued the previous directive on outdoor events permitting up to 200 people at a strictly managed and maintained outdoor event, the sector pivoted towards programming outdoor experience. It is not realistic to imagine that any arts or live events will be able to take place outdoors with a limit of 15 people, including artists, crew and audience." The statement also raised an important question about the exclusion of music venues from the list of places deemed controlled environments. These concerns were echoed by the board of the Event Production Industry COVID-19 Working Group, which represents 3,500 full-time and 15,000 part-time event industry workers, who said that the announcements give no clarity on live events such as music venues or outdoor professionally organised live events. In a statement on their website, Epic have said, "The industry is already on its knees and in severe peril, and these repeated miscommunications have caused enormous distress and worry for thousands of events and arts professionals who are trying to get back to work by planning safe, controlled events, strictly in line with government guidance." In light of the new guidelines, several outdoor events in the recently announced Dublin Theatre Festival programme are now awaiting further communications from the government. The full lineup had been announced on the morning of Tuesday, the 18th of August, just hours before the announcement of audience limitations for cultural events. Meanwhile, 4 outdoor Dublin Fringe Festival productions have been cancelled. She's So Lucky by Mark T. Cox, Tilt by Craic, Spud by Mishmash and Reckless Ross, and Comedians in Bohemians by Joanne McNally and Garode Farrelly. The festival issued a statement on Monday saying, "In order to adhere to the new restrictions in place for outdoor gatherings of over 15 people, Dublin Fringe Festival has no option but to cancel our scheduled outdoor events. Although their exciting new shows won't meet an audience as planned next month, we're hopeful that they will in the near future." We'll hear more about that from our first guest, Fringe Festival Director Ruth McGowan, after the news. In happier programming news, the Axis Ballymun have announced their bootleg season, a programme of both online and in-person events, including rehearsed readings, dance performances, gigs, film screenings and more. There's plenty of theatre on offer as well, including The Yellow Wallpaper from Then This Theatre, all 4 of Pat Kinnavan's one-man shows with Fishamble, and an in-development performance of TKB's new play Rearing is Sparing as part of Dublin Theatre Festival.
Mad times, strange times. It's been really hard to communicate recently, hard to reach out, hard to know what's going on. So we all need somewhere to go to. We all need a beacon of light. We've been thinking about prohibition. We've been thinking about the arts, creativity and the place they have in our lives. We've been thinking about how special they are, how much there's a need for them now. So what's Axis Bootleg? Well, it's our attempt to communicate. It's our new season. It's our education. We've had some stuff in here, stuff in the community. We've been trying hard, and now we're going to try better. Fail better, try harder, to be more alive, to be more in our community, to be more in your houses, to be more in Ballymun, to be more in Dublin, to be more in Ireland, to be more all over the world. We've been having a lot of chats recently, online, music sessions, work in our community, front doorstep gigs, because the arts are resilient, community is resilient, Ballymun is resilient. We're turning this place into a speakeasy. We're saying that creativity won't be prohibited. So, for the next 4 months, the Axis Bootleg season is going to bring you live gigs, online gigs, live theatre, online theatre, the Axis Chats, new dance. So we're inviting you out to Ballymun. We're inviting you into your own creativity. So get involved. So for all the details on our programme, you can go to www.axisballymun.ie. Hope to see you here.
Tickets will go on sale from the 31st of August, and more events and partnerships will be announced throughout the remainder of the year. And some very exciting news from the Irish Film Institute. The IFI have officially reopened their doors today after closing in March for the coronavirus lockdown. They have also announced that the 18th edition of their documentary festival will go ahead this year. That will kick off on the 21st of September and will take place both in person at the IFI in Temple Bar and on their new video on demand service, IFI at Home. Some breaking news from the Arts Council in regards to their new Commissions Award. Just this afternoon, the Arts Council tweeted a clarification on the award application process, stating, due to increase in demand due to COVID-19, organisations are permitted to make only one application to the upcoming round of Commissions Awards. An organisation may apply for one commission only in one art form area only. Now for some international news. In Scotland, Ballet West has closed with immediate effect after being the centre of an investigation into sexual misconduct by the school's former vice principal, Jonathan Barton. More than 60 former students, staff and parents spoke to the ITV News Scotland about their experiences with accusations of Barton's misconduct, spanning 14 years. In several cases, women have alleged that he initiated sexual relationships with them when they were just 16. An investigation has now been launched by Police Scotland, while the board of Ballet West has said that the school has been driven to the point of insolvency as a result of these events. In other UK, the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport has revised their guidelines on physical distancing for singers, following preliminary findings from a research study supported by DCMS. Distancing guidelines have been reduced from 3 metres to 2 metres, or 1 metre plus mitigations, like back-to-back positioning, wherever 2 metres is not possible. The study, which looked at the amount of aerosols and droplets generated by a group of 25 professional performers singing and speaking at different volumes, showed that there was a steep rise in the number of droplets expelled with an increase in volume, but that singing does not produce very substantially more aerosol than speaking at a similar volume. Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden said, "This means people can get back to performing, another important step showing we are here for culture through COVID-19. In Wales, First Minister Mark Drakeford has announced that Theatr Clwyd will be part of a trial outdoor event. In addition to limited audience performances at Theatr Clwyd, Welsh triathlons returning to racing competition and a car rally at Anglesey Circuit Track Mon racetrack will also take part in the trial, which will give event organisers an opportunity to give feedback to the government to help inform future COVID-safe events." Theatr Clwyd's artistic director Tamara Harvey said, "It's great to be working directly with Welsh Government to do all that we can do to bring live performances back to our committees, not least so that everything we learn can be shared with as many of our colleagues as possible across the nation." In Germany, a similar study is taking place to determine how coronavirus might spread in a concert setting. Roughly 1,500 volunteers participated in an experiment at Arena Leipzig, where they were put through 3 different concert simulations with varying health and safety protocols, admission plans, and seat assignments. The first scenario simulated a pre-pandemic event with no social distancing. The second included multiple points of entry to reduce crowding and increased space between audience members. And the final scenario had a smaller audience with volunteers standing 5 feet apart, the distance recommended by the German Ministry of Health. The study's organisers hope that the data contribute to national decisions as to whether an event should take place or not, thanks to reliable predictions as to the risk of additional infections related to such an event. And finally, in the USA, Tony Award Productions have announced that the 74th Annual Tony Awards will be presented digitally this year. President and CEO of the American Theatre Wing, Heather Hitchens, said, "We are thrilled not only to have found a way to properly celebrate our artists' incredible achievements this season, but also to be able to uplift the entire theatre community and show the world what makes our Broadway family so special at this difficult time. The show must go on no matter what, and it will." Final eligibility determinations will be made by the Tony Awards Administration Committee in the coming days, and a date and platform for the ceremony will be announced soon.
If you find value in Stage Door Live, please help us grow by letting your friends and followers know. If you're watching on Facebook, hit that follow button and give us a like. Take a moment to share this live feed with your friends and followers right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click that bell to keep updated on our new and exclusive YouTube content. Your support helps us continue these important conversations about Irish theatre now and into the future.
That's all the time we have for the headlines this week, but do check out our blog, The News That Didn't Make It, tomorrow for extended coverage, as well as several exciting funding and employment opportunities. This week, we also launched a new design for theatremaker.ie in preparation for some exciting new initiatives launching in a couple of weeks. Take a look and let us know what you think. If we missed anything in the news this week, please do send us your press releases and suggestions to news@theatremaker.ie or slide into our DMs on social media. I am delighted to welcome to our Dublin Fringe preview episode of Stage Door Live none other than the Festival Director of Dublin Fringe Festival, Ruth McGowan. Ruth is a dramaturg, producer and director and has been developing work in Dublin and New York since 2009. She initially joined the Fringe Festival team as programme manager, supporting hundreds of artists and ideas through Fringe Lab workshops, artist development initiatives, and one-on-one consultations. She took on the role of Festival Director in January 2018. Welcome to the show, Ruth. It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for having me.
So let's get started. So only a week after Fringe applications closed, lockdown went into effect. What did that mean for the Fringe team and what were some of the goals in redesigning this year's festival?
Sure. Well, I suppose in those kind of innocent days of March, when we all thought that this would be a couple of weeks or a couple of months, our main priority was moving our Fringe Lab work online and making sure that the community, we were reaching out, that they felt supported, that people had a place to gather online when they couldn't use our studios and when the building was closed. Also, we were in the thick of it reading applications that had come to us through the open call. And so that's, I think, in those early days, we thought Fringe would be the party at the end. You know, we thought that things would be resolved or wrapped up and thought that come Fringe time, we would be back doing the festival as usual. And it wasn't until a little bit later that we began to realise that that wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, we were very sad actually to hear the announcement of the cancellation of the outdoor shows planned for the Dublin Fringe. How has this last week been for you and the team?
Well, you know, at Fringe, we knew that making a festival in 2020 would mean working with a great deal of uncertainty and that we're prepared to right up until the end of the festival. So certainly we knew that we would have to be nimble and that we'd have to be really adaptable, but we still wanted to try, that we felt that placing the value on process and placing the value on doing as much as we possibly could, you know. And so last week when the new restrictions came in around outdoor performance, obviously, it was really disappointing for all of those artists and all of the teams and all of the crew that work with them and all of the Fringe team too, that like after months of work under really challenging circumstances.
It must have, those conversations must have been heartbreaking, Ruth, you know, to have to speak to the artists who have obviously put their heart and soul into their work over the last couple of months, perfecting it, ready for audiences, to then not get a chance to put it on. Was that a struggle for yourself and the team to have those conversations?
Definitely one of the bad days, Kelly, like not conversations that anyone wants to be having. I would absolutely give such credit to all of those artists because obviously they're reading all the same news that everyone else is, and they were undertaking it knowing that public health is everyone's priority this year. But for sure, it was really very disappointing for everyone, and really, really your heart goes out to people who, you know, for cabaret performers, for physical performers and circus performers, for comedians, that's work that needs an audience. You know, they're not writers, they're not, some artists can do their work in a studio privately and can devote the time to process, but people working in other art forms need an audience to make that work, to make it happen, to be able to write, to be able to make. And so for them to be, to not have that opportunity and to have that opportunity be further away was absolutely a real disappointment to everybody. It's a real shame.
Yes, absolutely. So that actually leads me into my next question for you, Ruth. Like, in what ways did the approach to curation have to change? So why did some shows make the cut and others didn't. You mentioned some shows really need an audience in order to work. So what were the other criteria?
Well, I guess actually the reason we were making a festival at all is because Dublin Fringe Festival has that spirit of invention in its DNA, that we are a festival of firsts every year. We're no stranger to doing things for the first time or in brand new ways. We're no stranger to looking at an idea and saying, that's a brilliant idea. We have no idea how to do that, but we're going to figure it out. So there's definitely that spirit within the organization anyway. And I guess curatorially, the things that were important to the artistic team and the sort of rules that we worked with when we began to reimagine a new kind of festival were that we wanted to stay devoted to active spectatorship. So nothing that you could press play on and walk away from, nothing that you could be doing while also doing the hoovering. We wanted to kind of honor that connection between artists and audiences, and present pieces of work that would start a conversation that would demand the audience's full-bodied, like full attention, full energy presence to make them happen. Mm-hmm. And then the other rule that we had for ourselves was that we were going to support projects that could exist in their full artistic gesture within the parameters. So nothing that felt like a facsimile of something else, and things that would be artistically satisfying to the artists. So projects that they would have wanted to make, whether it was 2015 or 2025, so pieces of work that could be really ambitious and be realized in their full ambition this year.
Yes. So were there artists that volunteered, like withdrawing their applications because they felt it wouldn't work based on when they initially applied? Or was it mainly you guys making those decisions?
It was mainly us making those decisions. Yeah.
Okay. So the arts sector has been understandably frustrated over the past week, specifically regarding the lack of clarity from the government. What would you say has been the most challenging aspect over the course of lockdown from a festival director's point of view?
I think that certainly, there's no one, you'll struggle to find a community who are more resilient and more resourceful and more creative than the arts industry, than all of the artists and the arts workers that make it up. And I think for what has really caused problems for people in the last year is the inability to set parameters, that in the interest of public health, the goalposts are going to keep moving. And so the ability to plan is really compromised by that. So I think that that's a challenge for everybody. But I do think, the overriding thing, or I guess a more philosophical thing rather than a practical thing, is, I'm so grateful and really admire the work that National Campaign for the Arts have been doing on all of our behalf to make it really clear to government, but also to the population at large, that, the arts is an industry, that's between the arts and events industry, it's tens of thousands of people whose livelihoods are at stake. And so that the industry really wants to be afforded the same opportunity that other industries have been given to get back to work, to adapt and to work safely within the guidelines, and to find a way to make things happen, to bring audiences and artists together in a new way, really safely, which we know we can do.
That's a lovely positive attitude there, Ruth. I must channel that kind of energy now going forward. So you mentioned earlier about the spirit of the Fringe. Dublin Fringe Festival's manifesto includes an invitation to break from, experiment, challenge, subvert, and overall have artists interrogate their disciplines and practices. Has the manifesto in any way changed to accommodate the current restrictions? And how has the Fringe team remained artist-driven in the current circumstances?
I think that we, as an organisation, our core mission is art form development and talent development. And every decision that we make about the programme and about Fringe Lab is led by those two things. So even though we're doing it in a different shape this year than we might normally, I do think that we're staying true, holding true to those kind of principles of the organisation. And so that means that with our programme, we are really championing formally innovative projects. So pieces of work that find new pathways to shared connection, which has been really invigorating actually, and really energizing to watch those artists work and to find those solutions. And then with the expanded Fringe Lab program, we were able to take 50 of the really exciting ideas that came to us through the open call for submissions that were unable to be realised this year for obvious reasons, for kind of because of all of the restrictions, because of the change of scale of the festival, and to support those artists and their ideas so that we're kindling those sparks for when they can kind of blaze back to life in the future. So developing those artists as well as championing the works that can be realised this year that might be more experimental in nature.
That's wonderful that you guys have been encouraging that work to keep going and keep developing. It's really lovely that you guys have been able to do that as well. So fantastic. So we each have personal connections with the Dublin Fringe and its importance, but what sets it apart on an international scale?
Well, I would think that the calibre of work made by Irish artists is really exceptional. That we're really proud to represent such a creative and ambitious community. And so the work that we get to showcase to international presenters who travel to see the festival each year is of a really high standard, and we're really proud of that. And also, I think, the difference in structure is that Dublin Fringe Festival, unlike a lot of other Fringe festivals, the Dublin Fringe is fully curated. So the festival does have a point of view and a taste, but it also has a very different financial model to other Fringe festivals, which is that it's not pay to play, we don't have a registration fee, that there's an option for people to be in a Fringe venue where the venue rental is paid by Fringe, where staffing is paid by Fringe, and so that the artist can concentrate on making the work with some of those financial barriers to entry removed that you might have at other Fringe festivals.
Yeah, that financial burden being taken away is absolutely vital in not stifling creativity. So that's hugely important. So in regards to an international audience and international work, which obviously Dublin Theatre Festival does too, is there a fear that this year might only be reaching out to the artists and not actually to the public who might be yearning as well for those live performances?
Definitely not. I think actually one of the upsides of everybody kind of beginning to work remotely during the pandemic and thinking about reaching people in new ways is that it dissolves geography. So actually this year we've been able to co-commission and co-present with colleagues abroad, like Norfolk and Norwich Festival in the UK, like the Centre Culturel Irlandais in Paris. We're able to have artists working together between Trinidad and Dublin, between Dublin and New York. But also it means that we can reach audiences all across the country and all across the world simultaneously, which actually I think might broaden the platform that we can offer to artists. But also I love the way that it removes barriers to access for audience members as well, so that people can be going to a Dublin Fringe show from their living room on Cape Clear, from with their friends in Paris. Like, that's really exciting to us.
Absolutely. All this Zooming that people are doing at the moment really is encouraging people to connect with other types of theatre abroad. So that's interesting that we'll also be getting audiences coming from abroad. That's one of the few upsides. And we have to, I suppose, focus on those positives, don't we, Ruth?
We do. And also, I think the most energizing thing to do is to really dwell in the realm of the possible. There are so many things that are impossible and off limits for us. But actually, when you look at the things that are possible within the parameters, it actually, like any creative process, there are parameters which can be useful to kind of open up new avenues of thought, new perspectives, new ways of experience. We have a number of shows this year that are connecting with audiences through the post, which I think is actually a really lovely way of maintaining that real life connection, that like tangible, you can hold in your hand this package that has come from an artist who will give you kind of a set of instructions about how to have, again, like an embodied experience. You know, when you go to the theatre, you bring your whole body with you. You're not double screening, you're not doing anything else. And we hope that those two projects that come in the post will encourage the audience to be active and to have that kind of real tactile connection to the work.
Fantastic. So we're going to look a little bit more forward now, Ruth, into next year. I can't believe we're talking about next year already, but what would your recommendations be for folks who are looking to apply for next year's Fringe?
Well, the thing that I always say, I guess the number one thing is that there's no such thing as a typical Fringe show. That really what we're interested in is supporting the ultimate version of the artist's work. So if you're true to your idea, if you're rigorous about your thought behind why and who is on your team, and why that's the piece of work that you want to make, that's what's most compelling, and that's what will make us fall in love with the idea. I would also say, talk to us. Like, you don't need to wait for the application form. That, you know, the Fringe team, the artistic team are here. You know, between October and December of this year is a really good time to come in and or, you know, to set up a meeting with us over Zoom or over FaceTime or however you're comfortable, and to have a chat about, this is what I'm thinking, this is what my idea is. We love to play matchmaker. You know, if you're looking for collaborators and are not sure who the right person might be, we're very happy to connect people and to point you in the right direction, but also just to help you talk about your idea and tease out where might be the right spot for it.
Wow, it really sounds like the door is always open then, Ruth. Would that be right for artists
100%,
to come to you?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. That, you know, we really love having those early conversations with people about their ideas. It's a great way to get to know people. In normal time, I always say, like, invite us to come and see your work is the best way to introduce us to your work. And that remains true. So if you're doing a showing of work in real life or online, absolutely get in touch with myself and with Dee Sparks, who's our artistic projects manager, and Ciara Coyne, who's our Fringe Lab and programming assistant. All of us are always very happy to hear from people about a meeting or about going to see their work.
Wonderful, that's lovely. So I know that we know there's several shows which have already sold out. Congratulations on that, by the way. There's still several ways in which audiences can take part in this year's Fringe. Would you like to talk about those opportunities?
For sure, there's loads of the programme that's still available for people to get involved, and we'd really encourage everyone to support the artists and to support their ideas, even if it involves getting involved in a new way that you haven't before. So whether that's, as I say, getting a show that comes to you in an envelope in the post, or doing one of the interactive digital shows, which are live. It's you in a room full of strangers, just like it would be in a theatre. But also the show, those live online performances are unrepeatable. They have all of the kind of thrill and excitement of live performance, in that it might go horribly wrong or horribly right. So definitely we would encourage people to go along to those. But also there's our manifestos, which if you get the Fringe brochure, you can read the beautiful manifestos written by We Are Griot and Glitterhole and Gender.RIP, and those will be on display in Dublin and in Paris throughout the festival too. So there's loads of ways to get involved, and lots and lots still on sale.
Oh, fantastic, Ruth. That was just such a lovely chat, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're looking forward to covering as much of this year's festival as possible. And thank you to yourself and the Fringe team for the Trojan work that you guys have been doing. Keep going and keep the faith. It already looks like you guys have a really positive, proactive attitude to what's happening. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. I hope to see as many of you as possible at the festival in real life or on the internet.
We will be there. Over the next few weeks, we'll be featuring some of the Artists at Work, an initiative of the Dublin Fringe Festival. This week, I had the pleasure of chatting with Oisin Robbins, who is currently in Denmark. Oisin is one of the Artists at Work and has an exciting project in the works. Let's dive right in. Welcome, Oisin. It's an absolute joy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure to be here with you. Yeah.
So, Oisin, how did the Fringe approach you for the Artist at Work series, or did you apply for the programme?
Yeah, thankfully, one of the great things about what the Fringe do is that they have open call-outs, and they kind of, they throw their doors open to anyone who's really interested in making art around the country. So back in spring, I put together an application through my brand of theatre, Beluga Theatre, and with everything that's been going on over the last few months, they must have had many's a sit down trying to figure out how to program their festival, and then they got back to me a few months ago and came up with this new solution for some of the artists, which was the Artists at Work series. And it sounded like a fantastic opportunity for myself personally, and for all the other artists involved to have a shot at making some theatre in this day and age.
Amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about the project that you're doing now for the Fringe?
Yeah, so the project I'm working on is called Project Skawman, which originates way over in Denmark. And Skawman is the Danish for a nickname called, so Skaw means wardrobe, and man means man, Project Skawman. And I got the idea when I was visiting just on holidays in Denmark, and I found out about this person who lived his life as a hermit for the majority of his life. And I just started digging a little bit about it, and I found out that there was so many interesting facts about the way he lived his life. Yeah, so he wheeled his wardrobe down to a beach, and he set up his life there until pretty much the end of his life. And so it started off with just wardrobe, and then he just built his whole life around it. And I just found it really interesting. I just find it really interesting to find out about people who decide to live differently from the mainstream, what we can learn from it about ourselves and about other people. And so I started trying to find out more about that, and about the community around him and how they responded to that. So ultimately, I said I wanted to find out a bit more about this. So I applied for a Creative Europe open call last year called the I Pertunis program. And that was successful, the application. So they supported me to travel over there, where I got to find out a whole bunch of stuff about this Skawman and kick off the theatrical possibilities for what we could do with it.
Amazing. What was that research phase like, being in Denmark and finding out more about this really interesting man?
It was, to be honest, it was a brilliant opportunity and an even better experience. I got to partner with the local museum, Strua Museum they're called, and they were excellent in getting me just right to the heart of it. So they gave me a space to workshop ideas, test different things out, but also I had full access to all of their archives. So I was there going through the life of this person and the times that were around him. So he would have been alive in the first half of the 20th century. So I was finding out about his interactions with German soldiers who had arrived and built bunkers all around him. I'd find out about how he'd interact with children at the time, how members of the community would have been, first of all, fearful, or maybe would have vilified him, and then find out that maybe, that they found out he was actually a really interesting character that you could go down and have chats with. So when I was researching all this stuff, I was finding so many anecdotes and so much historical evidence from previous interviews that he would have had. And I just thought, this is so rich and so fascinating. And the museum were excellent at getting me in touch with people who had met him as children. So I was going around having interviews with people who had met the actual Skawman. And with Beluga Theatre, I have a focus on putting work on for young audiences. So they put me in touch with a school, and I'd go in and workshop some ideas with them, test some things out, hear their feedback on it. So it was a really rich exploration of one man's life, but also the interactions around. And I found out that there was so much scope to discover more, but I kind of got caught into historical research mode. So it was a socio-historical project, But I kind of had to remember and say, okay, I have to make a piece of art. Ultimately, you could get lost for years just trying to put information together with him. But there's only so much you can find out about one person. Like even I went to his to the graveyard where he was buried, and on the tombstone it's written, "There are runes that no one can decipher," which was really reflective of this person. He was a bit of an enigma to people who lived at the time. They figured some things about him, just like myself. They wanted to figure out, why are you doing this, and what are your ideas? What's the motivation? Because he did this by choice. He chose to live differently by choice, not out of unfortunate circumstances. He just chose to live this way. And when I think about that, and I think about not only in Denmark, in Ireland, and around the world, there's so many examples of people who choose to live like that, and to have an actual example of someone who had such an interest in life, and to have the resources to try and explore that for a bit, all the way over in beautiful Denmark. It was a great privilege. And
wow, Oisin, I totally see why you were drawn to that story. Skawman sounds like such a character and such a brilliant impetus for a show. Oh my goodness. So what does the Fringe's support mean for the project at this stage then?
It gives it exactly what it needs to continue. So I finished that step in Denmark with a public presentation in the museum, which was great. I had all these people come to it, feedback, comment on the process. And the main thing I got out of it was that they wanted to see more. So they wanted to know more, which is a great type of feedback to get. So I came back and I contacted the Pavilion Theatre, which had put out an open call out for their Studio Space Award. And I was lucky enough to get that award, and I'll be able to put some ideas into play in November of this year. But in the meantime, I just basically need the time and space to kind of put all of these ideas and this endless information and resources into something where I can decide what the narrative should be, what the style of performance should be. And so what the Fringe have come in and helped with, which is monumental for the place the position is in and the project is in, is to explore this idea. So they've partnered me with the Town Hall Theatre in Galway, which I've worked with many times with before, and I have a great connection with them, which is lovely. And so, yeah, they've set up this support of time and space for a week during the Fringe to find out what this piece should be. So at the moment with the Fringe, with their Artists at Work series, they've given myself and the Town Hall like a lot of freedom to decide how to go about it, how to interact and engage with potential audiences. So at the moment, the first step will be to sit down with the Town Hall and see what's possible for them and what they'd like to do, and figure out what's best.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And I wish you all the best with the project. It sounds really fascinating, and I can't wait to see what it turns out like. Thank you so much, Oisin. Take care.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be on here. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Oisin, for taking the time to talk to us. We can't wait to see what's in store. Our interview was edited for the live show, but we'll be releasing the extended interview on our YouTube channel very soon. My next guests are Shanna Breen and Luke Casserly. Shanna and Luke are an artistic duet based in Dublin who use sound, science and performance to investigate our human impact on the planet. In 2019, they collaborated with Dublin Fringe Festival and Science Gallery, Dublin, to create Mould into Shape, a travelling soundscape on the Dart, which examined Ireland's national connection to the material of plastic. They are currently artists in residence at Dublin Fringe Festival, and their intimate soundscape 1000 Miniature Meadows can be experienced whether you're in Dublin or Donegal, in lockdown or out. Welcome to the show, Luke and Shanna. It is brilliant to have you with us.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, I love that energy. I can tell this is going to be a great chat. Okay. Luke, I'm going to start with you. You have worked with Shanna on several projects. How did this magic collaboration start?
Yeah, so myself and Shanna met in 2018 when we were doing a program called The Next Stage as part of the Dublin Theatre Festival with Theatre Forum. And this was a residency program where you got to see all of the shows as part of the Dublin Theatre Festival that year. And we also had to do some workshops together and to really see what each other were about in our own practices. And then after that, myself and Shanna decided to come together to make the project that you just mentioned, Mold into Shape, which happened as part of Dublin Fringe Festival in 2019. I suppose the thing to say is that both myself and Shanna are from the Midlands. So I'm from County Longford and Shanna is from County Offaly. And like the seagulls, we migrated away from our hometown towards the city as artists. And so that was kind of a jumping on for us to kind of start working together.
Fantastic. So, Shanna, how do you complement each other as makers?
Yeah, so we met through Next Stage, and we through that there was a lot of workshops that we did as part of Dublin Festival as well as those. And I think that when we saw each other make and all our sort of similar ideas on the shows that we went to see, I approached you or you kind of approached me, and I was just like, let's make something together. You know, it seemed like a lot of our ways of thinking, our critical thinking, on the really lined up, and that we shared some sort of similar sort of theatrical aesthetic. And yeah, we just launched into our first work, and here we are on our third a year later, 2 years later. Yeah.
Amazing. So you two were totally vibing and on each other's wavelength. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I suppose this is a question for you both. So where did the spark for 1000 Miniature Meadows come from? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, so how did it start? So it started with us coming up with an idea of how to connect audiences together through non-technical means. So not through Zoom, or no offense, guys, but this idea of making a letter writing project came up, and Ruth sort of approached us to see how the project could unfold a little further, and yeah, so this letter writing thing kind of came to the front of our brains. And also how, it was during COVID, it was during lockdown, and the world kind of stopped, the human world, and there was different worlds kept on going. The seagulls kept flying, the insects going, and we wanted to sort of view the lens and nature and the environment, and look at the biodiversity decline as well. So there was loads of things kind of came together.
Totally, yeah. And I think during lockdown, what was very special for us was that there was a collective opportunity for us to come in contact with nature very closely. And I was at home for quite a lot of lockdown, and Shanna was in Dublin. I think, like a lot of people, we were noticing things, whether it was a bird flying past or a leaf falling off a tree, but it felt very intense and very, like it was very potent. So we were also very interested in what it might be like to share that experience with an audience, and how can we create a project through sound that looks that notices very closely a lot of our biodiverse species here in Ireland, and how can we sort of help them in return for helping us so much during this lockdown period over the last few months.
You're so right, guys. Like, so many people have been talking about how they've connected with nature over the last few months
Yeah.
because, they've been kind of as you say, noticing it more. We actually had Tom Creed of the NCFA on the show a couple of months ago, telling us about how he started documenting his walks home, and he would just take pictures of, maybe a random cat passing by or something in nature that he noticed, because everybody was kind of taking their time, and slowing down a little bit to notice things. So it's cool that you guys have made a project out of that. So were there elements of your process for mold into shape that you used for 1,000 Miniature Meadows, or did you alter the process a bit?
Yes. So kind of each of the projects that we've done so far: Mold into Shape. Mold into Shape is Street View, which was part of the plastics exhibit in the Science Gallery. So it was like a static sound bench that occurred. Sort of at the core of the projects is the idea of interviewing sort of experts in the field. So with Mold into Shape, it was and now through 1,000 Miniature Meadows, we're talking to experts in biodiversity, and weaving those interviews through abstract sound, and there's the poster. Weaving those interviews through abstract sound and kind of stretching out the science aspect of what we're sort of learning at the moment. So I think that where art meets science is a huge interest of ours, and sort of the intercontextualization of this really heavy information, and mixing that with our imaginations and trying to figure out how we can share the information in entertaining, intimate way.
It sounds like It sounds like you guys have so much research, to do for this project. So, Luke, I'll go over to you for this one. How do you go about choosing your experts, and how do those voices factor into the landscape of your project?
Yeah, through a lot of collaboration and partnership, we between myself and Shanna, and also our wonderful sound designer Brendan Farrell, who works with us. We identify, as part of our research, a number of key experts in the field, in this case in biodiversity and our native pollinators here in Ireland, who we think would be able to offer the audience interesting viewpoints on a particular subject, based on their area of expertise that perhaps the audience will not maybe have experienced before. So, for example, we talk a lot about we know that earthworms exist, and we know that they soil, but perhaps we heard earthworms quantified in terms of the amount they contribute to the Irish economy. So that was one experience we had this time, talking to Dr. Nolene Smith, who works at the National Botanic Gardens, and she talks about natural capital accounting. So you'll have to listen to the soundscape to find out more. But that's kind of that's kind of the thinking behind how we accumulate the interviewees that we have. So to mention, which Shanna picked up on, but the idea of legacy is really important to us as well. So with our previous work, Mold into Shape, giving the audience a piece of tactile plastic that was found during a research period of doing the beach clean on Killiney Beach. With this project, the legacy is that hopefully in a year's time or 5 years' time, the audience will be able to walk past the place where they planted their meadow, and be able to, the legacy will live on, and they'll be able to look after it and care for it over a long period of time.
Gosh, that sounds really lovely and positive and so immersive, and lovely that you can keep going back to the spot and revisiting and seeing, what you've planted. That's fantastic. So what can audiences expect when they receive their ticket in the post?
Yeah, so it all starts with the letter in the post, which will be the invite to sort of, there's a link, and that link will bring you to the soundscape. So at any point when you receive the letter, you can choose a moment that's best for you, a quiet moment on a Sunday or whenever you have free time, and the invite is to go out into nature and to take your 50 minutes, and that's when the soundscape will begin. And to go back a little bit on what Luke said there, I think the pulse of the project for us is that we're learning through the project. Like, neither of us are scientists. I got horrific grades in science in school, so this is like this lens through the project is how we're making this intelligible, and I think that's the intrigue. And so we're weaving together many people's opinions, and we're learning along the way, and hopefully the audience will expect to kind of hear from sort of people who are studying this every day and studying the stats and seeing how insects are doing, you know, and yeah, just to listen in. It's an interest curve for us.
It's lovely to come at science from an artistic angle. I just love that. I think what you're doing is amazing, and really accessible for people, you know. As you say, you don't have to be good at science to, you know, go out and learn about it. You know, I would have been the same as you, I'd say, Shanna, in school.
I say my science teachers are like, "What's she at?"
Well, you'll show them. You'll show them. So this isn't the first Fringe experience for either of you. So I'm going to ask you both now. So I'll come to you first, Shanna, and then I'll go to you, Luke. So what does Fringe mean for you?
Like just even hearing Ruth there on a minute ago, Fringe is such an exciting festival. It just is an absolute array of everything happening. It's giving voices to people who, like, we're working from our kitchen tables at the moment. You know, there's nothing too glam about our process this year because of COVID mainly, but it just offers so many different types of people to share something, and very individual sharing, you know. Fringe themselves as a team are unbelievably supportive. There's so many times where you feel like you kind of have to say that, but this is not one of them. Their support, especially during COVID, was it just, they really care, and they really ask the right questions, and it's always about the work, and producing the kind of the work that needs to be made, and it means a lot to me. I moved back from London, where I was studying for I was there for 6 or 7 years, and to come back, I really felt like I wanted to come back to Ireland. And I made my first work in Fringe, and through that, it connected me up with Luke through Next Stage. So this constant kind of discovering new people and going to see new work, and we're spoiled with Fringe.
That's a lovely answer. Try to top that one, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything Shanna's just said, particularly during this time. I mean, I like so many other people, when I seen the brochure this year, even it was emotional to see this catalogue of such electrifying and inventive projects and ideas during a time, you know, where so many, because, you know, the arts sector has been devastated over the last few months, and it's very difficult to imagine what the future is going to bring. But it's completely inspirational for me as well to see Fringe going ahead at the moment, considering it feels like it's against all the odds that an art would happen, and it's just incredible to see all of the brilliant projects and ideas that have been distilled into this beautiful program by Ruth and Bea and the whole Fringe team. So it's really special. This is I've done a few.
We're gushers. We love them.
Yeah.
I know, both lovely answers, and I'm sure Ruth would appreciate hearing that as well, because I'm sure she's been working so hard over the last few months. So last question for you both, and it's a little challenge as well, because you have to answer in one sentence. One sentence for you, Luke, and one sentence for you, Shanna. And my question is, what have you been inspired by recently? And whoever's ready can go first.
I
don't all jump at once.
Simon McBurney from Complicity did a recent sort of podcast video with 3 sound artists. I think it's on YouTube, Complicity YouTube page. And it's the art of listening and truly listening in. And it kind of talks about the politics of sound and how we're such a visual nation and worldwide we're so visual at the moment. And when you look back to kind of all forms of entertainment, they come back to sound and sort of the aural experience and the art of storytelling. That wasn't one sentence, but Simon McBurney, Complicity.
No, okay. You did say a lot of ands, and so there was, and a few commas in there as well. So it's fine. Yeah, totally allowed. Luke, over to you.
Gosh, that's a really hard question because so many things are inspiring. To choose just one, I'd have to say something that has really inspired me over the last few months, and that has given me a lot of hope and has I feel like has a group of people, but are the National Campaign for the Arts, who have done so much tireless work over the last few months in really carving out and safeguarding resources for the arts sector in Ireland going forward. So I've been totally inspired and given hope by their work in speaking to the powers that be. So I'm going to say them.
Both very good answers, and I'm sure actually the NCFA would be delighted to hear that their work is definitely encouraging artists as well. Listen, guys, that was amazing, that chat. Thank you so much, Shanna and Luke, for joining us. We can't wait to plant our own wildflowers with 1000 Miniature Meadows, and we'll provide links to this after the show. So thanks a mil.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Stage Door Live.
Our associate producer, Janice de Bruyha, made an exciting trip to Galway to see some live theatre from the comfort of her car. Let's take a look at Janice's journey to Fibin's Fiach.
Okay, so we're off to a great start on our great Galway adventure. So the roads were closed, but they weren't, the diversion was not clearly marked. So we've had to do a U-turn. I'm still in Laois. We're still in Laois. And we're on a random little country road in the hands of the gods of the sat-nav. Not entirely sure where we are. But the lovely man, where the road was closed, the road worker man, was very kind, if a little bit patronising, maybe? If we take the next right, we'll be okay. And the sat-nav, I think, agrees with me, maybe. We are actually on a dirt road with tufts of grass. This looks like we're going down a lane into a farm, more than likely. So yay for adventure. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Well, we're back on the right road now, and I feel safe enough to have a sip of my coffee. So next stop, Galway. So we still have 2 hours and 20 minutes to go. We're past Portage, we're on our way to Tullamore to get onto the motorway, and apparently there's traffic, so Google Maps is taking us down this delightful little road, which actually it feels like we're on a boat because it's so bumpy and there are so many little hills. but we're on the Shopley border, so that's good. We have passed through the Badlands of Offaly, we won't talk about it. Then we were in Westmeath for a while, and then we were in Roscommon for a hot 10 minutes, and now we're finally in Galway County. I am so excited. As you can see, the weather is beautiful. Very beautiful. So we are now coming up to the show. Whoop, 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 whoop.
And now we have to look for where we need to go.
Yeah. Are we going to film the action?
Yeah, we are, yeah.
Film the whole thing. Grand. It's very exciting. Very exciting. Fibin will have nothing on the toll plaza. Here we are now. Oh. And stocks. Woohoo! You're letting us in! And there we are now. Look at that view. And the rain has actually cleared up. I might not love it. But we've gone from torrential downpour to a little bit of a mist. So all going well. And here we are entering the lovely Spidale. And we have to go past Spidale through to where we're staying, and then on further to get to Fibin Show, which is where we're on our way to now. But we're very excited. We think we might actually go for a dip in the sea. We'll see how we go. But the main thing is Támuid an Seo, Támuid I Gunnamara, agus Támuid reinventing. Whoop whoop! So we're on our way back from our sea swim. It wasn't nearly as bad. It was actually lovely, if I'm being honest. The anticipation getting into the water was far worse than actually being in. And once we were in, oh my god, it was grand. We were in the water for what, about half an hour? Yeah. About half an hour. And like, sure, we're stopping, like, but it was divine. Caffrey Cunada, it's 10:45. Támuid Arshley, we are on the way. I was not at all bothered putting on makeup after being in the sea, so I just decided to put on my red lipstick and my very sparkly earrings. Lads, Tomer Beach, I am so excited. I am about to see real live, actual theatre in person in my car, but I'm so excited. It's pitch dark, so the lighting's going to be excellent, one presumes, and there's never a sign of a bit of wind. There's not a sign of wind. Lads, we're in a queue, an actual queue to go and see a show, and they're coming to check my ticket. This is the best thing ever. I'm just so happy. Carclure, so Támuid an Seo, we are here. We've already had gas crack with the people driving in, and so how it's working, you can see there's a big screen over there, and we've been given a frequency. So the sound is going to come through the radio, but we're currently having difficulties because it wants us to go to 97 FM, but my radio won't let me go to 97 FM. It keeps going past it, and no, you've gone too far. Go to 97, go to 97, 97, stop. No, not 97.4, 97. Stay. No, what are you doing? Stop. Why does it pause on 97 and then move? Stay. Stay. It's just not going to work. I have not come all the way to Galway from Carlow, having gotten diverted and getting lost in the back roads of nowhere, having gotten into the sweet sea at freezing temperatures. No, that's Galway Bay FM. I don't want bloody Galway Bay FM. Stay at 97! I tuned the car to 97 FM! Ah! I should not be this happy, and that should not have been that stressful. Can I just point out, that was very stressful. That was very stressful. But we're here!
Si'n believe that the crunch we chin. Is a kind of Fiach to get off the bina. I had to have a super.
An incredible night. Took me a while to process actually everything. I was so overwhelmed at the end, but I have to say, Cogorgegus Fibin, congratulations. Showed and scuff when my
on Thanavos, Fiach Harbor. But a huge part of the experience for me was the fact that I was able to share it with other people, and to know that there was this whole host of other people right next to me in the cars, and I could hear the laughs, I could hear the gasps and the tears, and bipping my horn like a mad wagon at the end with everybody else in lieu of a round of applause. That shared experience, just to know that I was on this journey with this everybody else there, it repaired a piece of my soul. And it was worth the drive, it was worth the drama, it was worth everything. And Dana May reached day, gone out. I'd do it all again without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, thank you, Janice. I don't know about you guys, but that absolutely cracked me up. Although Fibin's Fiach ended on the 22nd of August, there is a wealth of performances happening all over the country, and we'll be keeping you updated. Check out our weekly blogs on theatremaker.ie and take a look at our new design. We will have exciting things on the way, so keep an eye out. Our final guests this evening are Emma O'Grady and Dr. Miriam Haughton. Emma is the creator and director of Mad, Bad and Dangerous, a celebration of difficult women. Dr. Miriam Haughton is a lecturer at NUI Galway and is an associate producer and researcher on the project. Welcome to the show, Emma and Miriam. It's brilliant to have you both on with us.
How's it going?
Yeah, good. So, this is a question for both of you, but I'll come over to you first, Emma. Can you give a brief overview of what exactly Mad, Bad and Dangerous is?
Yep. Mad, Bad and Dangerous is a web series of interviews between influential Irish women over 70 years of age. Interviewing each other, and it'll go out online as part of the Dublin Fringe in September, and then more episodes will go out in October as part of some online events that Bealton are doing.
Fantastic. It sounds amazing. So Miriam, can you tell me a little bit, maybe perhaps about why the word difficult is in inverted commas?
Well, I suppose in a way to show that we're having a bit of fun and feel these women are difficult at all. But it is to point out the fact that women in public life and in public space get a raw deal. And typically you're either presented as a really, really, really good girl, you know, and a bit of a holy Joe and a bit boring, or else you're really, really sort of difficult and going to cause problems, and be careful of that one. And so in some ways, part of, I think, what the series of interviews is doing stop with this really way of representing women, this sort of lazy way that just taps into the old boys club, when it was just about keeping women at home with the kids, keeping them quiet, out of sight, and realizing human beings and we're all complicated and interesting, and that's a really good thing. So when we have difficult women, I think it's really important to have the word difficult comes celebration. And so what we're doing is celebrating some really amazing women who have essentially broken ground and changed the way we live in this country politically and artistically and culturally, and trying to just give them a space where they can speak about themselves and try not to get caught up in these kind of cheesy stereotypes presenting women, which are not fit for purpose. They're just outdated, and we all have to be a little bit more careful that we don't keep sort of reproducing these stereotypes.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And it sounds like a fascinating project. So Emma, where did the inspiration for this come from?
Well, so first of all, it's inspired by Lily Doolin, and Lily Doolin, a lot of people will know her, and then after this, I hope a lot more people will know her. So Lily Doolin is She's a film director. She was an actress. She's a journalist, a producer. She's written books. She's just an incredible champion of the arts, and she's an activist. She's got a very strong backbone, and she's got great integrity. And a lot of people in the arts in Galway particularly would know her. She was one of the co-founders of the Galway Film Festival. She was the first, the first female director of artistic director of the Abbey, because of course Lady Gregory never had the title, but Lelia was first female director of the Abbey Theatre. She's directed the Reardons in RTE, a long career in RTE. What else did she do? Anyway,
wow,
but I came.
the list is going on and on there. That sounds like something that could be done in 10 lifetimes, never mind one. And she's still going. Am I right?
Oh yeah, very much so. My God, yeah, no, she's very busy at the moment with lots of different things. So I first came across her work in 2011. She made a film called Bernadette: Notes on a Political Journey, which was a documentary about Bernadette McAlliskey, Bernadette Devlin, a lot of people would have known her as. And I snuck into that film without a ticket for the Galway Film Festival. I didn't have any money, and I just went up and I saw Lelia give a pile of comps to some volunteer, and I went up to the volunteer and basically just pretended like she was supposed to give me one, and she panicked and gave me one, and I went inside and sat down. And later that day, or after the film, Bernadette McAlliskey gave a talk to a post-show talk in the town hall studio, and it was just incredible. Like, she just said the most amazing things. She's just such an amazing person, and we're so lucky that she's still working and still active. So that's when I first came across Lilia's work. Then since then, from 2011 up to about 2016, noticed her events, or her name would come up, and you'd know Lilia at an event, because if there's a post-show discussion, she would, from the audience, that the speakers need to speak up. She has no problem speaking out loud in public. She commands a space, and she's just fantastic. So I was kind of aware of her, and then became more aware of what she was doing and what different things she was involved in. So I invited her along to see a work in progress of my own show that I was writing at the time, in about 2016, What Good Is Looking Well When You're Rotten on the Inside. And that was based on tapes, my cassette tapes my granddad had recorded a month before he died. So Lelia came along to that, because I kind of thought, I just kept seeing her at things, and it must have been about 80 maybe at this stage, and I was kind of going, she's cool, I want to be friends with her. And so I invited her along to this thing, under the pretense of I'd love some feedback on my show, but really I just want to hang out with you. And so we had this lovely post, we did my work in progress, and everybody was sitting around in a circle, and I had some lovely feedback from people, and people were offering suggestions and how the project might go forward. And Lelia sat in the chair, and she said, I hope you're going to clean up those effing tapes, because I can't hear a word of them. So yeah, so I said, that's actually brilliant. Really good. She's very practical, so that was really good practical advice for me. So
it sounds like she tells it as it is.
She does, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. She's deadly. She's a real inspiration. And so yeah, I don't know. So then in last November, there was an event called Cross Pollinator, which was run by Lara Hickey and Katie Holly, and it was basically 2 weekends, a networking kind of educational kind of event for women in film and women in theatre, to kind of cross-pollinate the two disciplines. And it was really brilliant. There was just amazing speakers at it, and it was just a fantastic thing. And at one of them, amazing actor, writer, everything, theatre maker, filmmaker, script editor, Deirdre Roycroft, Dee Roycroft, made a speech, and at the end of it, she said, she talked about loads of amazing different things, and she talked about identity and feminism and all kinds of things. But at the end of the speech, she said, where are all the older women artists? And she said that, I hope that when I'm 80, I still have a voice and I'm still in the room to use it. So that really stuck in my head. And then about 2 weeks later, there was the launch of the Siobhan McKenna archives in NUIG. So Siobhan McKenna, the famous actress, Galway actress, and Druid had come and given a lot of their stuff towards the archive, and then her family were there, and it was a big event. It was a big day, and people were reading out essays about her, and it was a great celebration. And towards the end of the day, there was kind of a conversation with Lelia Doolan and Sister Benvenuta, Margaret McCurtain, who both had known Siobhan McKenna. So it was less like an interview, more like a chat between these two women. So Sister Ben is over 90, and it was just amazing. This particular generation just have a real conversation, and then also they kind of, I'd say they could have been sued for a lot of the things they said, because they just didn't care, and they mentioned illegal things happening and all kinds of stuff. So I was just fascinated by it, and actually Liam Bell deserves credit for this, because later that day I was so fascinated by it, and I tweeted, well done NUIG, and I said, wouldn't it be great to have a podcast with those two women, with Lelia and Sister Ben. And Leon tweeted back, and she said, you should call it Mad, Bad and Dangerous. So Mad, Bad and Dangerous, or she said, Leon said, what about a TV show? And you could call it Mad, Bad and Dangerous. So the title Mad, Bad and Dangerous comes from, in the 1960s, Archbishop McQuaid, when Lelia was involved in all kinds of protests and civil rights and all kinds of things, he said that woman is mad, bad and dangerous about Lelia. Now, Lelia says that never happened, but that somebody found it in an archive, and she doesn't believe it, but she doesn't care if it's true or not. So we're choosing to not let the truth get in the way of a good story. So that became the inspiration for the project. Yeah.
Fantastic. It sounds like there's a lot of research that needed to go into this project. So Miriam, I'm going to come over to you. Can you tell me about that process, the process of research? Where did you even start?
I'm not sure. I sort of fell into it after a phone call with Emma, where, like most people, you hear about the idea and you just kind of go, God, that'll be brilliant. These women will have stuff to say and they won't be one bit scared of saying it, really. So we initially, there was a bit of a process in terms of deciding, well, who's involved and who's being interviewed. And Lelia really has led a lot of that, calling up her mates. And one of the loveliest things about this is that the women really have total kind of agency and curatorial agency over who's involved. So they would make suggestions or call up friends and say, would you be interested in being involved? And so then in terms of researching them, there is a huge amount of research to do because they've done so much. You're dealing with like these machines of human beings who don't stop and don't retire. And it sounds like they never get tired. But because they're being interviewed with their friends know so much more about them than you can ever get online from a biography or you can ever get from their CV. And I think that's sort of the beautiful thing about the project is it's pals who've known each other over decades, who know the good stuff, who know the bad stuff, who know the stuff that was misrepresented, who know really like the sensitive spots and are going to do these interviews really in a spirit of trust. So I have been involved in trying to get a lot of research from lots of different sources, general media sources, research sources, and just sending it along to them for fact checking. But my job is really in some ways just sort of background research because the interviewing the other women are their peers. One thing that has really bothered me when I've gone to do the research is that I've kind of known of these women. Like I've heard of Bernadette McCalskey. You can't live in Galway and work in the arts and not know Lelia. And then there's other women programmed in later series, and you kind of then you start Googling and you're like, oh, they did this. But then after like a bit of dedicated research, they have done unbelievable things. Like some of them have changed legislation. Some like Lelia went into a room full of Hollywood producers and banged down some bacon and sausages on the table and a bottle of whiskey and demanded $1 million or so to get a movie made. And they gave it to her, And
Wow.
and found it like
Remind me to get a bottle of whiskey and some sausages and keep a stack of them in the freezer.
But it's her power, like as an individual, and she's helped found the Galway Film Flash, Cinemobile, the Palace Cinema. She's been involved in so many things, and it's like, why am I even searching for information? How come I don't already know it? And that bothers me. And when you go searching, you can find the information, but you have to go searching, and it's not always easily accessible. So, for example, Bernadette Notes on Me, the documentary that Lelia directed and spearheaded, that came out in 2011. It was featured at the London Film Festival. It won at the IFTA 2012 award for Best Documentary. You think you'd be able to pick that up easily? No, you can't. You can't get it in the IFI. You can't get it off Amazon. I had to try and like almost hand over a kidney to get a slot in the NUIG archival room where a special system was set up so I could see a bit of the DVD. You know, why isn't her feature film easily accessible? Then going to do some research on Bernadette Devlin. She's written an autobiography. Well, she says it isn't an autobiography in it, but it's very similar to an autobiography called The Price of My Soul, detailing her political expertise, her involvement in the Battle of the Bogside, for which she was sent to prison. You know, the fact that she was the youngest woman ever in Westminster a couple of years ago. And she's this extraordinary figure who sort of led or was very clearly involved in all sorts of political and social rebellions in Northern Ireland that deeply impacted the island of Ireland and Britain. You think you'd be able to pick up a copy of her book easily. No, it's out of print. And it's not available in bookshops. And again, I have to go to the and basically blow the dust off the copy they have. You know, why isn't that easily accessible? And if Bernadette wasn't Bernadette, if she was a man and if Lelia was a man, would their outputs, would these really important films and books be easily accessible? Yes, they would. And there'd already be statues built in their honour. So that makes me really annoyed. And then where I feel like, well, what are we going to do about it? You know, I don't think that's what the interview series is about. I think the interview series is actually the women Craic getting a few things off their chest, kind of having a bit of laugh at us and going, let's let these ones facilitate a bit of an interview and a nice time for us. So I think they're entering it into the spirit of celebration, and sure, why not? And I think Emma has developed really good relationship. But I suppose for some of us behind the scenes, it is incredibly infuriating to see that these women who have broken the mold at a time when they would not have been supported to do any of this, change the actual landscape of the country we live in. And can you go into a shop and try and pick up any of their work? No. And that's a problem.
And I know you're asking why that is, Miriam, like, why can we not access all of that amazing material? Do you have a theory as to why? Do you have your own theory as to why that might be the case? Would you like to share that?
I would call it sexism and misogyny. And I think, it's really going to one person.
I was actually going to suggest that if it was, men that had done it, the whole country would definitely know about it, I think.
Oh, but like, it's just insane. And I think it's about understanding what sexism and patriarchy and misogyny mean in more structural everyday levels, in that we all contribute to it in some ways and we all reproduce it because we grew up with it. And so it's normal. It's deeply embedded into our consciousness, and you have to constantly remind yourself, is my perception something the way it should be? Am I looking at achievements through a lens of gender, through a lens of gender history? And so then you find instances like this that make it absolutely clear. And in all the women we're doing the research background on, we're finding this with all of them, that when you look at them, they are incredible people. Like, there aren't words for the work they have produced and the impact of their achievements. And yet you just kind of go, oh yeah, I recognize that name. Not much more than that. And that would be from a group of women involved in this production who would consider themselves very active feminists. So, it's about seeing it really as part of the structures of the society in which we live. And we know we have a name for it, but I think we need a stronger action plan for how we're going to perhaps change how we change our value systems in the day-to-day. Doing a big speech here and there is lovely, but if you can't go into a bookshop the price of my soul go into any sort of film or cinema place and get a copy of Lilia's movies. That's
Yeah.
just a really big problem,
Well, it sounds like this project is going to be, monumental from an educational standpoint, as well as obviously, from an enjoyment standpoint. So I think it's really amazing that you guys are on it and going to educate us all on what these women have done. And we're going to go to a social media question now. So I'm going to just read it out for you. It is definitely something that should keep going for 10 lifetimes. What plans are there for more interviews, storytelling, and or creative responses? I'll go over to you for that, Emma.
Yeah, brilliant. I just said to Miriam and Lara Hickey's the producer on it, I said, just be prepared. I think we might be doing this for about 15 years. Like, it's just going to keep going. Because, I have a list the length of my arm of women that I want to be part of it. And, and I must say that, I use the word influential Irish women, or who knows, we could go worldwide, influential women. That means women. It's brilliant that we have these women who are in the public eye, who have agreed to be part of this part of it. But I hope as on that, we'll be able to get anybody, and the women involved have all said, I'm not the only one. There are women who are unsung, who haven't had their story told, and that's really important to them, that it continues, this chain continues, and we're just going to follow it and see where it goes. I don't know, hopefully we'll do another series next year. So this is a 4-part, almost like a pilot kind of a thing, really, but it'll be proper. And then maybe try to get more money next year and do a longer one. We have a notion of going to the UK to kind of profile some Irish women, as Miriam put it one day, like Irish women in exile in the UK, because we have Edna O'Brien over there, Angela Cooper, Lucia Fitzgerald, and Anne Rossiter. There's loads of women over there that might have left Ireland where we left Ireland in the 60s and 70s and didn't come back here because of the way that they were treated here. So that would be exciting to go and do that. My personal dream is to get the 2 Marys, Mary McAleese. That would be amazing. We've had the idea that perhaps at some point we'll do a transcript of the interview, try and get a book published with the transcript, or a book about the project or something like that. Perhaps each season I might be able to edit it down into one film. I don't know. So could go anywhere.
Amazing. Well, I love the idea that this, that it started off as a single project, but it's going to be a series. It's going to take off and have a really lovely long lifespan. That sounds fantastic. And please get the 2 Marys. I'd love to see that. That would be awesome. So I've one last question for you guys, and if you could answer in one sentence each, that would be awesome. So the question is, we might be sold out on this project, but for those out there who might be rolling their eyes or thinking that this may not be for them, why should they tune in? I'll go to you first, Miriam.
People who are rolling their eyes, why should they tune in? Who would dare roll their eyes at Lelia Doolan and Bernadette Devlin McCalskey and the other women? I don't know if their names have been released yet, so I don't want to give any spoilers. Do so at your own risk. I don't know. I think this is one of the really lovely projects where I haven't had to convince them, and that's really a rejuvenating experience, I have to say.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, same as Miriam. If you don't want to watch it, it's probably not for you. So stay back and let the rest of us get on with it.
Exactly. That's the best attitude to have, ladies. Listen, thank you so much for joining us, Emma and Miriam. We'll be linking up in the show description after our live stream. as well as streaming details for Mad, Bad and Dangerous. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
If you find value in Stage Door Live, please help us grow by letting your friends and followers know. If you're watching on Facebook, hit that follow button and give us a like. Take a moment to share this live feed with your friends and followers right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click that bell to keep updated on our new and exclusive YouTube content. Creating live content is a costly endeavour. If you'd like to help us keep the conversations going, please hop on over to our Patreon page, where you can become a patron and gain access to exclusive patron-only content. patreon.com/TheatreMakerIE. You can find us on most social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at TheatreMakerIE. And catch additional news, blogs and sector coverage on our website, theatremaker.ie. Watch this space. There's more exciting content on the way from theatremaker.ie.
Okay. It's a shame we didn't have a show last week. Theatre news was breaking during our normal showtime. It would have been quite an exciting show. As news broke, new news broke with modifications to the original statement, and by Thursday morning we received further modifications or clarifications that again turned out to be incorrect. It was a virtual tennis match as our heads bounced back and forth, wondering what the actual situation was going to be with the new restrictions. Dublin Theatre Festival shows announced just hours before were now in peril and still remain in peril as we wait for clarification from the government. This week, it was announced that Dublin Fringe Festival's outdoor shows would be cancelled. The most disappointing part of the whole situation is not that we're still waiting for reasonable answers and clarification that is based on solid medically based facts, but that in the first announcement, theatre was not even mentioned. As of now, outdoor performances of over 15 cannot go ahead. Just a couple of weeks ago, the Kilkenny Arts Festival held safe, socially distanced concerts with 150 in attendance. Safe, organised, socially distanced concerts. Yet the government is concerned about what happens when audiences congregate before and after the performances, while at the same time allowing schools to open and have gatherings of 30 children indoors in a closed environment. As Abbey Theatre co-artistic director Neil Murray said via Twitter, "We are in a pandemic and tough measures are necessary and accepted, but let's at least have a level playing field for the arts." NCFA said in its statement on the 21st of August, the sector pivoted towards programming outdoor experiences. The Abbey, the Arc, Druid, Galway International Arts Festival, Dublin Fringe Festival, Dublin Theatre Festival, and hundreds of arts organisations and groups across Ireland have created and announced outdoor programmes which will now presumably be cancelled. Since March, artists and arts workers have scrambled in an organised fashion to entertain the public and to maintain the arts sector, which is on the verge of collapse. They have done their best to bring shows from the stage to the screen, a media that is not their own, to create new works that respond to the moment. They have moved productions from the close quarters of theatres to wide open, socially distanced spaces. They have, with great financial disincentive, reopened their theatres in a socially distanced and compliant manner to create safe spaces for artistic experiences to begin again. The arts have gotten us through this pandemic so far, but the lack of consideration by the government in its briefings is disheartening. Theatre artists and arts workers were the first to stop at the beginning of this pandemic. We are already the last to get going again. If the government thinks that the pandemic unemployment payment is enough to live on, we ask that they reconsider their own wages. The sector wants and needs to get back to work. Our producers, production managers, event controllers and safety experts have produced safe events forever. Adding COVID considerations to their safety tasks is not insurmountable. It is what they do. The government's lack of clarity has only made these tough times tougher. Theatre makers adapt. We move forward, but we need a level playing field. Here to leave us with a reading of After Show Party by Kay Tempest is the lovely Martha Breen. Martha is a graduate of the Lear Academy and has recently worked with Rough Magic, Guna Nua Theatre Company, Malaprop and This Is Pop Baby. Good night everyone, and we'll see you next week at 7 p.m.
Hiya. Big thank you to theatremaker.ie for having me on for their Final Poetic Thought. I chose the poem I did because the poet has been on my mind a lot recently. As of the last month, they came out as non-binary and changed their pronouns, and I think in such intolerant times it was a real moment of joy and celebration on my feed, so that really stuck with me. I think it's also a very pertinent poem for an episode about Dublin Fringe and for all of us who are looking forward to getting back to live theatre, whether seeing it or being in it. I think it's good to be reminded of the good, the bad and the ugly and all that. So it's a poem about the feeling when you come off stage and when you're still waiting to go on because it doesn't really stop. So this is After Show Party by Kay Tempest. Sat in the plunge of the seeping adrenals, stage hot but cooling, drinking for England, and staring intently at whoever's talking. My whole body like cymbals or symbols. Show techs, blue-faced from phones, text home. Somewhere out there they have lives on the boil. But back to the matter of cables and coil and loitering aimlessly. My body's a drone, a dream of a time, of blossom by water, to walk from my door without chug-sickened A-roads. But if there was life for me somewhere but here, I'd have found it by now. I get heavy with drink, eating for boredom, eating for pleasure, sleeping whenever a second comes clear, head in my arms on the floor of the airport. Probably time for a beer. Get off the internet, look at the trees in the park with their leaves in the light like music. Forget that your heart is a piece of brown meat. Feel nothing but love for those that have love. But if you are a human with a terrifying beauty who could make a mess of a mess like me, if everything is music and you like seeing sunrise, getting stoned in bed and staring at the sea, please find me here beside the stage. Take me by the floating hands. Lead me to a private place and pluck my heavy brains out.
Thank you.